Happy Technique Tuesday. Hi guys, I am Lauren Chatama. My company is Intentional Acting. And my technique that I want to talk about today is stop memorizing your lines first. Yep, that's my technique. Stop memorizing your lines first. And let me tell you why. Because it's so common. I hear it all the time. Actors, agents, managers, teachers, coaches, they all think that an actor needs to memorize their lines first so that they're going to have the, quote, freedom to explore their character and bring themselves to the role. Well, here in Hollywood, what happens most of the time is that you get maybe a 10-page audition as self-tape, and it's due within 24 hours. And then what I watch happen is I see these actors, and then they worry about not having enough time to memorize their lines, and yet they do spend the bulk of their time memorizing their lines, and then they're all worried about the lines, so they never have the chance to really dive deep into the character, and they never get that freedom, and it's not satisfying, and they don't feel like they've done their best work. And the other thing is that they're missing so much important information that would help them dive into their character more because they're spending all the time memorizing, worrying about the words instead of internalizing the story. And so then they walk away feeling like, if I only had more time. So I wonder if you can relate to this at all. Do you ever have that experience? And then the worst part is when the pressure is on, like you get in front of that camera or you get in front of people, that then the words just go out of your head and you're like, but I can't tell you. I had this actress. She had been working as an actress for like 5-10 years. I did a class and it was really just like 3 lines. It was a co-star audition. And I said, so how long did you spend memorizing that scene? She said, oh, probably about an hour. And then when she got up in class, she forgot the lines. And this is a working actress, okay? I said, well, what did you do to memorize the lines? And she said, well, I would write them down. I would play them into my phone, into a recorder, and then I would listen to them back. I said, but you forgot them. And she's like, yeah, and I don't know what happened. Maybe I'm just tired today. Well, it's actually not just tired. There's more science to it than that, okay? Because it's actually brain science why I don't want you to memorize your lines first, okay? Because brain scientists confirm that our brains remember heuristics. That's heuristics, okay? Which are packets of information surrounded by situational environment cues flavored by the interpretation of the event. So let me break that down, okay? So the best example is probably your phone numbers, okay? Though most of us don't remember phone numbers because we have our cell phones now. But I bet you can remember your childhood phone number or maybe your current phone number. So, for example, just you all, in case you need it, my phone number is 818-325-5752. How can I remember that? Well, 818 is, I just think about, that's the valley. That's the phone number, that's the area code of the valley. In fact, area codes get such, like they call it the 415 for San Francisco. They call it the 808 for Maui. And the 818 is Los Angeles. And so there's actually t-shirts. I just saw this up in the valley with like the 818. Like, what a big deal. That's our area code. So that number, 818, is a heuristic. It's an informational packet that is surrounded by a situational environment, which means that's the valley, right? And then it's flavored by the interpretation of whatever you think the valley is, right? And therefore, maybe a 323 or a 213 phone number or 310 phone number might be more fancy to you because those are more fancier parts of Los Angeles. But that, again, is a packet of information surrounded by a situational environment, interpret it with an interpretation that you have with it. That's why you remember those numbers, okay? Then the next packet is the 325 is those next three. Well, the reason they do it 818, 325, 5752. Why did they do that in 3, 6, and 10 numbers, right? Those are the 10 numbers. And how can you remember a random set of 10 numbers? By breaking it out into 3, 3, and 4. Those are heuristics. Okay? So how does this apply to script, memorizing a script? Well, those are beats, right? But basically, 818 is one beat, 325 is another beat, 5752 is the last beat, right? And then maybe there's a little bit of a mnemonic device, which is that 325 5752. It sort of has this ring. It's sort of, they're connected. There's threes and twos and fives, with a 7. And so then that might be a way to memorize it. So there's all these little tricks, right? But let's just go back to what science says. So science confirms that we remember information by heuristics. Heuristics are those packets of information surrounded by situational environmental cues, which are flavored by our interpretation of these events, okay? So when you use a traditional method like to memorize lines such as writing out your lines, or maybe a mnemonic device, which I just explained, or just learning it by rote over and over and over, you're actually working against your own brain and your ability to create character and live in the imaginary circumstances truthfully, okay? You're working against what your goal is to achieve, okay? And the irony is that nobody actually teaches, I don't know about you, but I really wasn't taught how to memorize a script. It's just kind of assumed information that you should memorize it by rote, because that's just the old way. But I want you guys to let go of that super old way of doing things, because it doesn't work. And you'll spend hours practicing something and then forget it and think, oh, I'm just tired. No, it doesn't work, okay? What will help you is, I'll give you a little bit of my 9 questions of intentional acting, okay? The process of intentional acting is that, and actually there's a step before that, which is the 8 keys of intentional script analysis. So if you start by understanding the largest concept of the story, right? So that's like doing research and going, what's the title of the show? What's the name of the show? Where does the show take place? Who's on it? What's the storyline? All of this kind of research. So if you got it, let's say a television script, and now you've got 24 hours to do, it's a guest star, it's got 10 pages, and you want 3 scenes, and you want to memorize this, start by doing your research and really understanding that show. And don't take hours, don't spend all hours on it. You can do that in less than 10 minutes, and really. You can watch a 30-second video. You can look up on IMDb. You could check out if there's anything on Variety or Deadline. You might even be able to watch just a trailer or part of the show, and you'll get so much information. And now that's probably even less than 10 minutes, okay? And then once you've got that, you've got sort of, it's kind of like the stew pot, the pot that holds all that information. You have this, and that's like, oh, okay, this is the container for this information, for the script. Now we're going to go into the script, and we're going to look at, start with what my question number 1 is, what is the scene about? What are the relationships? 2, where does it take place? 3, what happened the moment before? And 4, what is the conflict? That's how we decide what the given circumstances are of the scene and what this scene is about. Just that information can help you to start memorizing your lines, because you're getting clearer on the story. What are the relationships? Where is this happening? What you're doing is now going back to heuristic is a packet, right, of information. So we're going to do this section of this bit of lines, right? And then we're going to surround it with a situational environment. The situational environmental cues are, what is the relationship? Where does it take place? What happened the moment before? And what's the conflict in the scene? Now you're creating this situation that connects to those lines or to those words, okay? And then my second question is, and how do I relate to that? Or what if it happened to me? What would that be like? Now you're putting your interpretation on those words, on that situation, which is then connected to those heuristics or those words. So now you're working with your brain, you're working with science to help you remember that information. Basically, what you're doing is you're internalizing the story. Memorizing is kind of like vinyl record, where it just goes round and round in a groove. So when you're writing these things by line, maybe you're a visual person and you see them, or if you're playing them back in your auditory and you hear them, or maybe you just say them a million different ways and different accents and voices and tries, and then you're kinesthetic and you're feeling it in your body. Maybe you do all of those things, right? But all you're doing is really like putting the needle in the groove of the record. But internalizing means that it's not just in the groove in the record of my brain, it's now in my being. So when I go, what is that relationship? And what is that relationship like? Oh, it's an employer-employee, and there's a conflict between them. Oh, I've done that. I know what that's like. Now I'm starting to bring that down into my body. And now I'm internalizing. I'm like thinking about what does that mean? And now it hits more parts of my brain, which activates even more situational environment and more interpretation of that information, which is going to create a body of, it's going to actually, you know what it is? I'm going to call it. It's like putting cornstarch or flour in your stew that's in that pot. So the pot is you like this? The pot is the research, and now what we're doing is we're throwing in ingredients, and then how you relate to it is throwing in the cornstarch or the flour, the thickening agent that makes it connect and makes it hold together and stay with you. Okay, and so my students have really noticed that this works. So instead of memorizing the lines, they start by memorizing the 9 questions. And then from there, then they work on the beats. And then you might have to break down some thoughts and go, well, and sometimes it's about looking up words and looking up images of things. That gives it that context. It gives you the environment. It also gives you your interpretation of it, which is, again, right, the cornstarch or the flour that holds it all together. Okay, so there's really specific steps. If you're not going to memorize, don't memorize them first, because then it's just going to be stuck in a groove. All right? And for me as a coach, it's frustrating because I can't always break an actor of that groove. So I can't always help them make their performance better because they're stuck in this groove. And that's what happens when an actor can't take direction. They're stuck in a groove. Whereas if you've internalized the story and you understand the story of the scene and you've interpreted and connected to it in your personal way, then that's an adjustment. Now we can adjust how you connect to it, or we can adjust the information that's in there. And then it's easier for you to be more present. And what my students notice is that when they're doing these 9 questions, it's not only helping them to internalize the lines, but it's helping them slip into character. And what they notice is they're like, oh, I just felt like I got lost in the scene, or I just slipped into character. And they can do that like this. Because you can do the 9 questions in under a minute. It takes practice, it takes a lot of time, it takes learning to get to that point, but it can be done. So if that's something that would interest you and you'd like some help with that, you can always reach out to me. You can set up a Discover Intentional Acting call with me, discoverintentionalacting.com, and we can talk about how I can help you further. And otherwise, I hope that this information helps you to go out and book a job today. Good luck.